Okay, good morning students. We are starting now components of system, that is of Linux operating system here, and this is the, you can say, the component diagram or a structure diagram of the Linux. So here you will see that is system management program is the first block, and then user processes are there, then user utility programs are there, there is a compiler. Apart from it, the below layers are system shared libraries, Linux kernel, loadable kernel modules. So these are the, you can say, the block diagrams of the showing the components of the Linux operating system. So these, for example, if we speak about, we will speak more detail about it. So these are the modules. For example, there may be some hardware modules like CPU, input, output, and ROM, and they all has to be managed. So this is the part which see to it. Now this is the kernel, the main part of the operating system, which check all the, and kernel is also called as the heart of the operating system. Similarly, there is system shared libraries. The system shared libraries are actually helping each other, like the upper part and the lower part, that is kernel, and the upper, that is the utility part. So now we speak about like this in detail. So these are the main components of Linux. First one is kernel. Kernel is the core part of Linux, and it is responsible for all major activities of operating system. So it is very important part. And the second is like, basically it is responsible for all the major parts, major works done in operating system, in Linux operating system. Now system libraries, special functions or programs using which application programs or system utilities access kernel. Okay, so these are the libraries. Okay, now we'll go for the next part, that is system utilities. So I think it is clear to you now. So these are the system utilities, and these are used to do specialized individual level tasks. Means, for example, there are certain applications for the individual processes or individual users or individual clients, and on the basis of that it has been taken up. These are the system utilities for that. Okay, so now we'll start the kernel modules. There are certain kernel modules. Before starting kernel modules or components of kernel modules, we'll check what is kernel. The kernel is the heart of the operating system, means the major part of operating system. Linux kernel loads or unloads the module of kernel code only on demand. Whenever there is a demand, at that time only the kernel will load or unload the module of kernel code. There will be executed these will be executed in the privileged mode that provide unlimited access to all resources. So it has nothing to do to take some permissions from anywhere, and this will be executed in the privileged mode. Means it can happen, it can take over at any time whenever there is like a request from the kernel code. So these are the components of kernel modes. Okay, so components of kernel modules. First one is module management, or you can say module manager. It supports loading module into memory and enable all the modules to synchronize or communicate to the rest of the kernel. So finally, it supports loading modules into main memory or memory and enable all the modules to communicate or talk to the rest of the kernel. You can say synchronize or communicate means you can enable all the modules to talk to the rest of the kernel. So it has two sessions. One is that is managing section of module code. So it is managing the section of module code. Second is it is handling symbol that modules are allowed to refer, or you can say it is handling symbols that modules are allowed to reference. So these are the two sessions. Only if module is in use, then it is loaded, else unloaded. So this module management, under module management, we will see that it will be only if module is in use, then it is loaded, else it is unloaded. So module management will only work when the module is in use. So the next component is driver registration. Similarly, as we register our vehicles and all, similarly here also in Linux also we register new drivers and new devices. So this is like one of the module into it. So it allows module to tell rest of the kernel that a new device driver has become available. So from the line itself it is very clear. The kernel maintains the dynamic tables of all the known drivers. Means when, for example, if we open one file at first instance, it will take certain amount of time. But when we open the same file in the next time to use, it takes very less time. Similarly, like when we put a USB into a USB slot, it takes more time in the first time of usage, and it takes less time in the second time of usage. So this is because the kernel maintains the dynamic tables of all the known drivers. Now registration table has device. These are the certain columns, you can say, wherein if registration table accounts to these fields like device driver. Device driver means the name of the device driver, the details of the device driver. We stop here. Thank you. We'll carry on the next video.